I've always been a romantic and a dreamer who believed in love, even when the world kept trying to prove me wrong. My name is Michael, and I'm 29 years old. I never imagined I'd become one of those men with a sad story about heartbreak, but here I am, sharing an experience that changed my life forever. I met Emily through a mutual friend at a party. She was the kind of woman who effortlessly caught everyone's attention. Tall, with wavy brown hair cascading over her shoulders, and a contagious charm. From the very first moment, I felt something different about her, something that made me want to stay close, listen to her, and get to know her better. We spent the night talking, laughing, and sharing secrets. I discovered we had similar tastes in music, movies, and even food. When the party ended, we exchanged numbers, and she gave me a warm hug. In that instant, I was convinced I had met someone truly special. A few days later, we started going out. At first, everything seemed perfect. She always suggested interesting places to visit, charming restaurants, cozy bars, and lively clubs, and I, oblivious to everything, was more than willing to spend my time and money making her happy. But little by little, I started noticing something that didn't add up. No matter how much I tried to move our relationship forward, she always kept her distance. She was attentive, even affectionate, but never reciprocal. It felt like we were just friends. If I tried to hold her hand, she would pull away with a shy smile. If I suggested something more romantic, like a candlelit dinner at my place, she'd steer the conversation toward going out somewhere with other people, usually her friends. Despite this, I clung to the idea that with time, she would realize how much I loved her and that we'd end up together. In my mind, I thought she just needed patience and someone who wouldn't give up on her. And that's when I made my biggest mistake. I confused her attention with love. During one of our dinners, she casually mentioned that she'd recently ended a complicated relationship. She spoke about it superficially, as if she didn't want to delve into the details, but the way she stared off into the distance as she spoke made me uneasy. I asked if she still had feelings for him, but she laughed and said it was all in the past. That night, I believed her, or rather, I convinced myself to believe her. After all, why would she be with me if she still loved someone else? It didn't make sense. Or, at least, that's what I kept telling myself. I clung to the hope that her being with me meant something real, even as my instincts whispered otherwise. But then, I started noticing a pattern, subtle at first, but undeniable as time went on. Every time she posted a picture of us on social media, her ex-boyfriend, a guy named Ryan, would like the post and leave sarcastic comments. Not just a casual like or a passive-aggressive emoji, but deliberate, cutting remarks that made it clear he wanted to get under my skin. What baffled me most was how Emily seemed to revel in it. Once, she even showed me a message he sent, saying, "Looks like you're having a lot of fun, huh?" She laughed as though it was some kind of private joke and said he was just jealous. Her tone was lighthearted, but the fact that she shared it with me felt like a slap in the face. That moment made me feel terrible, humiliated, even, but not enough to walk away. Not yet. I rationalized it as just part of her past lingering in the background, something I could ignore as long as I kept moving forward. Then came the evening that unraveled everything. We'd had a few glasses of wine, and Emily was unusually reflective. She started talking about Ryan, about how he'd been the love of her life, but also an idiot who cheated on her. Her words were raw, almost confessional, as if she had been waiting for the right moment to unburden herself. She admitted that part of her still wanted him to feel the same pain she felt when he flaunted his new relationship on social media. The casualness with which she said it stunned me, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I asked her, my voice trembling, if she was only with me to make him jealous. She hesitated for a few seconds, her eyes darting away, before denying it. But the guilty look on her face told me the truth more than her words ever could. I should have ended things right there. Any sane person would have, but I couldn't. I was so emotionally invested, so blinded by my feelings, that I chose to believe the comfortable lie rather than face the painful truth. I told myself that if I just tried harder, gave more, loved deeper, she would come to see how much I cared for her. It was a fantasy that kept me going long past the point I should have walked away. And so, things went on like this for months. I became the perfect guy for her to show off, attentive, financially stable, and always available. I threw myself into the role, taking her to the most expensive restaurants in the city, exclusive parties, and even helping her with personal problems. But every time I did something for her, I felt a little smaller and more drained, as if I were pouring every ounce of myself into a void that could never be filled. I became less of a partner and more of a prop, someone who existed to elevate her image while being quietly diminished. Then, one night, everything fell apart. We were at a club, and Ryan showed up. He wasn't alone. He was with a stunningly beautiful girl, much younger than Emily. The moment Emily saw him, she froze. Her laughter stopped mid-sentence, and the color drained from her face. I knew right then that my illusion was over. She spent the entire night trying to get his attention, dancing provocatively, laughing loudly, and completely ignoring me. It was as if I had ceased to exist. The humiliation was unbearable. By the end of the night, Ryan walked past us, barely acknowledging Emily with a mocking wave before leaving with his girlfriend. Emily was devastated. She clung to me, tears streaming down her face, and said she couldn't understand how he could be so cold. I stood there, holding her as she cried, but inside, I felt a quiet rage boiling over. That night, something inside me snapped. It was as if a fog had lifted, and I could finally see everything for what it truly was. A few days later, Emily and I went out one last time. She was different now, suddenly affectionate, texting me constantly, saying she missed me, and even suggesting we take things more seriously. But this time, I wasn't falling for it. The spell was broken. I remember telling her as calmly as I could, "Emily, I'm tired of being used by you." She tried to argue, her voice trembling with surprise, but for the first time, I stood firm. I told her I deserved someone who wanted me for who I was, not for what I could provide. Someone who saw me as a partner, not a pawn in their emotional games. She was silent for a moment, maybe expecting me to cave like I always did, but I didn't, and it was liberating. I got up, pulled a $100 bill from my wallet, crumpled it, and tossed it on the table. "This is the last cent I'll ever spend on you," I said. "It's to cover the check." Then I walked away, feeling lighter than I had in months. It wasn't about the money, it was about reclaiming my dignity. Looking back now, I see that this experience, as painful as it was, became one of the most defining moments of my life. I learned that loving someone who doesn't love you back is not only a waste of time, but also a form of self-betrayal. My time, energy, and love are too valuable to be spent on someone who doesn't see my worth. Emily may have used me, but in doing so, she gave me the greatest gift of all, the strength to walk away and the power to say no. If you have a similar story, share it with us in the comments if you'd like me to narrate it. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. See you next time.